this is a very, very special interaction. It's very personal to me, selfishly. We are calling this particular session of talk therapy Sense and Sensitivity because okay, let me share my perspective quickly in order to introduce the context of this session. During my decade plus years of teaching, and as some of you know, a lot of my teaching is individual, one on one. And there have been almost without exception, each of my students over the period of these years who have confided in me suo moto about many, many things that are distressing them across a wide range of facets of life that they're not particularly comfortable sharing with their own families in a lot of cases. And not only do they confide, they also actively seek advice and counsel. Although I am not qualified academically and scholastically to be dishing out advice, what I do have is a certain amount of lived experience that helps me at least put the problems that they are coming to me with into a sort of perspective that makes sense to them and that could in turn point them in the direction of some sort of healthy way of navigating and coping. Now, the reason I share this background is that we are in a situation in India where, and I know India is vast and it's wrong to generalize and it's very simplistic, but I think by and large, we are still at a place where, although mental health and mental health infrastructure is on the up, it is developing quite a bit as a culture. I think we most of us would agree that it's still not part of our DNA and it's still not something that is routine. It's a very, very specific thing that very few people seek in certain extreme circumstances. So it's an intervention. It's seen as something that is specifically problematically to be organized and orchestrated in certain cases. And not so much about a broader, wider, more inherent culture of openness, safe spaces, being able to express one's inner thoughts freely, at least to some few people. That whole culture is perhaps missing. And if we were to address that and somehow bring that about, and I know that many people are engaged in doing precisely that, we will, I think, hugely alleviate the very extreme circumstances in which many people find themselves for lack of this background to begin with in the first place. And forgive me for that very convoluted introduction, but the individual joining us today is somewhat of a champion of precisely this. It was her very idea that we speak on this theme and subject, and I was very, very happy to hear that because joining us is the co founder of Manastha, which I, in my limited understanding, would consider quite a pioneering organization. If my research is correct, they've been around for 8 years plus, perhaps a little ahead of their time. And so Kriti Vikrant Verma, who's a psychologist and co-founder of Manastha, is joining us. I'm very, very privileged and happy to welcome her. And I'd like to thank her for making time and for making this very critical suggestion of what we should talk about. This is Drive Talk Therapy brought to you by Driveway Devi. And I'm Karthik on behalf of Driveway Devi. Welcome, Kriti.
Thank you, Karthik ji. And I just like to take a moment. When you said talk therapy with Driveway Devi, I felt so humble. I remember my days when I was going through some emotional distress of my own life. And I remember that I used to be alone for a significant period of time because I was working from home and I didn't have anyone to talk to because I had no roommates, no family living in Delhi with me, where I was in a flat. And I remember how many times I have searched and I've tried to find people talking and having conversations online that felt like therapy. Uh,
Mm.
because quite frankly, I could not afford therapy at that point
Sure.
of time. And I believe somewhere personally, as I do consider myself in a spectrum of highly sensitive people. So I have found it vastly difficult to kind of burden people that I love with what I feel. And hence, and I'm not saying that that's the right way to go forward, but I've worked a long time upon this habit that I have, where I would not be able to share what I'm going through with someone that I care and love about, even though they'd be more than happy to accommodate me, because I feel that I'm burdening them, or that I'm not worthy of kind of having that time that they could utilize in something more fruitful.
Mm, 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 mm.
So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge how this moment, this podcast, everything that you're doing has been such a help to anyone who is listening it, because it takes a moment to feel like you're part of a conversation that's not happening around you, but it just makes you feel like you're present there, and makes you feel slightly healed every time you end a podcast. And I'm so happy. I could not find you. Of course, you did not start it when I was studying, but these days I do end up scrolling your channel a lot more than is
Wow,
healthy.
I'm really really flattered and moved actually. Thank you for that. It really when I hear things like that, it's very humbling, and that is really the entire purpose of this. Of course, at one level, it is very fundamental psychoeducation, but second, really, is to exemplify, demonstrate, and illustrate that it's really no big deal. And I don't say this lightly. I'm not trying to diminish anyone's distress. But what I mean is that just like we go, and this is now, said to death, but just like we go to a physician for a cold or for anything else, just talk. It's just the same thing. Wonderful. So, Kriti, I usually begin these interactions anyway with asking my guests to first tell us a little bit about themselves and their work. So, perhaps you could give us a little bit of an insight around, your own sort of coming into this realm and Manastha and why it started.
Okay, so quite honestly, I still feel I am that 11-year-old kid who who was making sense of the world, and there were a lot of things that I felt I don't fit in, a lot of places, a lot of groups. I always have a core memory of seeing that I start a class and I have a new section and a couple of new people. And I feel like I'm going to make a new impression and I'm going to be more accepted this year. And somehow by the end of like the semester, I would feel that I am outcasted, because like there's a significant group, and that group is some leaded by some person that I absolutely admire, but somehow they don't like me. And that's a core memory. I have spent so much time understanding that that was my perspective, and that was not exactly how things were happening at that point of time, but how largely it has impacted the way I viewed life, myself, and world around me moving forward. So my journey, I think, with even when I did not even understand mental health as a term, and self-esteem or self-efficacy as a concept,
Sure.
I did develop significant gaps
Hmm.
how I view myself. I had a version based on uh, a version of what a successful person should look like based on what success looked like in my family. Might have been cracking government exams, getting into revenue or all India services,
Hmm.
getting
Hmm. Hmm.
becoming an engineer or a doctor. Quite honestly, I was a student who was above average and average. I was a student who did not have a good teacher, I would just really I would do very bad in that subject. So I was a person who was like largely driven by emotions. I
Hmm.
remember my parents telling me that how are you so volatile that every time you have a teacher who is good, if you have an encouraging person around you, if you have a group who encourages you, then you do good. And if you don't have a group around you that praises you or encourages you or validates you, then you do bad.
Hmm.
Now that I have grown up, I realize that that's such a significant part of a person's existence. If you have people around you who validate you, encourage you, love you for who you are, you do better. And that's something that has been scientifically backed up in so
Yeah.
many studies. But at that point of time, I viewed it as a weakness.
Hmm.
I was always an emotional person. I would very easily cry. And I remember this is another of my some very significant core memories, which is that every time I would cry, people around would use terms like you're very selfish, you're an attention seeker. I even had a teacher who said it to me when I was, I think, in fifth class, कि आपके ये घड़ियाल के आंसू यहाँ मत रो. I did not even know what that phrase meant. When I went home, I realized it meant that you're faking something. A child who is 10 years probably does not even know what faking means. But then, yes, something like that was said to me. So I think I started growing up feeling that what I'm feeling as a sensitive person is again a weakness.
Hmm.
Moving forward, it I remember that when I was in, I think I was 17 when it was time to uh, turn up for boards, and वहाँ पे exam centers होते हैं, आपको subjects मिलते हैं. I think 16, I must have been 15 or 16 after 10th. So I was given subjects. I was not given the subject that I need because I wasn't very admired by the teachers who were part of that committee. Even though I had, I think, 88%, and I asked for biology, I was not given that. Even though
Hmm.
people of 72% were given
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I clearly saw that bias, and I refused
Sure.
to sit in the classroom
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
did not want to sit in a place where I don't feel like
Naturally.
I belong.
Yeah.
So I was, because I stood for something, I said that I don't want to do that. And I called my father. I was called a person who's not, now I realize it's that you're not compliant enough. But at that point of time, I realized you're not obedient, you're not disciplined, you don't respect people who are older than you. Although I did not disrespect anyone, I was just sitting there waiting for my father and felt like crying. Wasn't crying because that was also not accepted. And over time, I studied something that I did not want to study. Yes, of course, I eventually got pushed in the direction of psychology. Absolutely loved it, but that was also a personal choice. But I was given subjects that I don't like. Then I moved to another school that that had a very different culture at a time when it was very sensitive spot for me in career.
Hmm.
I had PCB, but then I did not want to do medicine. So again, something unconventional. I also deep down believe that I don't think so I would have been able to crack PMT at that point of time because I still feel that I did not have that objective intellect. I have different kinds of intellect now. But I think I still, when I view myself and my journey of mental health, I feel at various spots, if I see a child going through that, I would feel we have failed culturally.
Hmm.
You have unintentionally developed a child who has gaps in their self esteem, like their image of self.
Yeah.
They don't know who they are. They enter the group that they don't want to enter because that's the group where they found a seat. It's
Yeah.
almost like a Delhi metro. You entered a cabin not because it's designed for you, but because that's where you got the seat. And I feel when you live life like that, you become an individual who's a product of circumstances, product of feedbacks, products of opinions of other people. You do not become a person
You
who
don't become your authentic self because you
yes,
just relied on
definitely.
external. Hmm.
And what is authentic self at the end of the day? It's something that I have built over time. If I have been given enough choices, freedom, autonomy, and validation to build that. There is no such thing as authentic self if I do not have an authentic environment.
Right, right. I think in my layperson's understanding, you can't reach that authenticity without a certain amount of exploration or investigation.
Yes, you cannot. And the fact that you should know that you have equal right of giving feedback to your environment as much as your environment holds right to give a feedback on you.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. If you're only taking feedbacks, you're not giving them, you're not introspecting whether something is your cup of tea or not, you're
Right.
tapping into a human being that does not have a thought of their own. And that means that because the world is volatile, लोगों के ओपिनियंस आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते, और नॉइस जिसे हम कहते हैं, दैट द
Mm, mm,
नॉइस
mm,
यू हैव
mm,
अराउंड यू इज
mm,
सो
mm.
extreme
Yeah.
and poles apart.
Mm,
Somebody would feel wearing a bikini probably is a mode of self-expression. Somebody would not even think that it's a mode of discussion because it's very normal in their culture.
sure.
Somebody would feel that you're becoming a promiscuous person because you're doing that. And
Sure.
we have
Sure.
people like that in our culture.
Yeah.
It's a noise. And each time you're going to travel to a new state, to a new country, to a new set of friends, you will have different noises
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Forget about new state, country. You go from one neighborhood to the next, it'll change.
yes, exactly. That is definitely very true in India. So when you go from one neighborhood, or even like, I think one person in your house, my father advocates for different things, my mother advocates for different emotions. So at the end of the day, you're just a confused, frustrated being. And at the end of the day, you just either you make a decision that just cut this all crap, I'm going to decide what I want to do. एंड उसके भी दो कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज हैं, एक है कि यू डू इट इन अ हेल्दी वे एंड यू लर्न कि राइट एंड रॉन्ग क्या है, उसका ग्रे शेड्स क्या हैं. दूसरा होता है कि आई जस्ट बिकम अ रेबल विदाउट अ कॉज. And then we see people around us who are just automatically frustrated without any reason. We don't even know
Right.
what they're fighting for exactly. So we're creating a culture of people who do not have a ground to stand on.
Mm, mm,
They've never given the autonomy of standing on their ground. So for me, my journey, I still look back to that 11-year-old kid. And then I look at myself today. I've been lucky, yes, that I have found a circle of people, such as yourself, of course. I have found a circle of people over time who went through similar experiences, but then they got opportunities to figure out life optimally. And I went to them, and then I think there were moments where I have kind of left those circles that were not
mm, mm,
helping me, and I moved to circles that did. But the choice that I made was also because I had few people to guide me.
mm,
And some of those people were teachers, some of those people were, yes, I have a therapist.
mm,
She's also one, but I got her really late into my journey, unfortunately. But even though I was a psychology student, I found my therapist very late in my
mm,
journey,
mm,
probably in my 25 or 26
mm, mm,
years of life. But I have found teachers, mentors,
mm,
I've found friends
mm,
who have been that seniors who have been that kind of guiding light. And that made me feel how much of an impact a culture does, or just a simple sense of sensitivity does provide to a human being. And over time, of course, Manastha has been a product of all of that. Being a psychologist, realizing that not all psychologists are good. Being a psychologist, realizing that psychologists are overburdened because we don't have enough of them. If they're doing their work properly, they are
mm.
overburdened.
Sure.
Psychologists, you are packed. And that is because you're serving 1 lakh of population. It's 1:1 lakh of a ratio.
Right. And I think, of course, you'll agree that it's not just a numbers thing, essentially, because, see, the thing is that not being a therapist, I give myself the liberty of making certain politically incorrect remarks. Essentially, from morning to night, you're being trauma dumped on, right? So where do you go then? So not only are you overwhelmed in terms of your time and physical energy, but emotionally, where do you go for your own solace and restoration and refilling your vitality?
Yes, fair enough. And that's not true only for psychologists. I think it's
Sure.
true for any medical health professional.
Right. Absolutely.
Also true for a person who's been working in a corporate sector and has seen employees and bosses, your managers, you're a team lead or you're a team member, and you receive a lot of different kinds of energy. Where do you find that space to live? If you're a father, if you're a mother, and you cannot show your emotions very actively because you feel responsible for your kids and you don't want yourself to be the center of their life, you don't want to be a problem that they want to fix. So you are that person now who's
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
trauma dumped on. Where do you find your space? Where do you
Absolutely.
settle in that journey?
Absolutely. No, that's you've hit the nail on the head, which is precisely why we are having this broader dialogue, because it shouldn't and it doesn't have to be that it aggravates so much and reaches that point of manifesting by way of a condition or an illness, and way before that sort of a stage is reached, if we can develop this culture, a broader culture of greater acceptance and openness, I think that'll reduce significantly. I have three, four thoughts that I must share with you, which you have to allow me to share now because in my old age I forget later on. Number
Please.
one, um, the uh, the the ease, and I know that mustn't be easy because I know from my own lived experience, but the ease and the abandon with which you are vulnerable when you talk is hugely inspiring and empowering, despite the fact that you are yourself a psychologist. And I've had any number of psychologists tell me quite clearly that, listen, we cannot mention anything personal because it'll negatively impact our professional endeavors, which in my own limited view, I see as a slightly myopic view. Perhaps because you are you want to come across as human, don't you? But anyway, that's a separate debate. But it is very, very admirable, and I consider it a privilege. So thank you for doing that. What you mention and choose to call very modestly as, oh, I don't know, I was being adamant and standing up for something else. You were actually standing up for yourself, which was quite clear. And what you refused to do, which also you are too modest and eloquent to call it that way, was you refused to be a doormat. So, I mean, that's all those things are hugely admirable because at whatever age and stage those realizations and the courage to then act on those realizations comes is great, because there are enough and more people who go through life completely blissfully unaware and not doing anything. So I just wanted to, share that and put it out there also for our audience. So excellent, and we really, really admire all of those qualities. Perhaps we should then talk, Kriti, a little bit about how we can start to build this culture. And for a change, I have something positive to say, which is that because I'm constantly interacting with parents, and so I happen to start teaching when the child is 8 and above. So, also by consequence of that, I'm routinely interacting with a lot of new stroke younger parents. And I see a perceptible change in their outlooks, in the way they perceive and see things, in the way they treat and acknowledge things. Because it's very interesting. I've had both sets. I've had a set of older generation parents who are in complete denial, for example, about their children being on any kind of spectrum.
Yeah.
And then I see this newer lot who's very keen to have it diagnosed as early as possible, get in, do the thing, educate themselves, get their children the support they need. So we are, I suppose, the way I see it, the time is right. We should strike when the iron is hot, because there is a critical mass of at least urban youth that is becoming more aware and more open. So, your thoughts?
Yes. Karthik, I recently had an opportunity to be present. We were doing outreach programs, which were completely free of cost. We were doing it for the sake of doing in educational institutes. And my focus was schools, and they were also of tier two and tier three cities. And actually, I want to give you this credit because I remember we had this conversation the first time we connected. You pointed this out that if nobody is going, and no anybody, I to quote you, anybody who is worth anything, if they're gonna move to another city or to an urban world, who's gonna take care of places that
Yeah,
we are leaving behind?
absolutely.
um and I think that inspired me. I was personally involved in going to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. We went to Sikar, we went to Junjunu, and we covered almost all of Rajasthan. To my amazement, we don't give enough credit to these cities.
Yeah, we don't.
I feel people are much more aware and sensitive than we would expect them to be. And I think a part of this credit can be going to, of course, how media is now accessible to everyone. Like internet is no more a luxury; it has
Hmm.
become a standard. Uh,
Sure, sure, absolutely.
no matter what economic class you belong to,
Correct.
still be part of you. So I saw people being more accommodating to, of course, you have to be very sensitive about what words you use, but I felt that that's true for even the urban parents. But there's another side of it, Kartikji, that I noticed, which was, and we call it, when we were studying psychology, one of our teachers said it, this called medical student syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
which means when you study uh, any subject of medicine, even psychology is a health subject,
Sure,
you
sure.
start like self-diagnosing, and you feel every time you read about a disorder, you would feel you have it.
You have it, yes.
If you read enough about cancer, you would start experiencing that you
Correct,
get
correct.
very anxious about cancer, no
Hmm.
matter
Hmm.
what you get, even if a simple headache could be a symptom of cancer.
Right.
I saw a lot of parents, some who were informed about the subject, some who were not. I saw a couple who were doctors, actually, both husband and wife were doctors.
Mm-hmm.
They have
Mm-hmm.
a kid who is just 3 years old.
Okay.
A 3 year old kid is obviously, she's somebody who's in pre-prep, in like this play school era. द थिंग इज कि 3 साल का बच्चा ऑफकोर्स जिस चीज में इंटरेस्टेड होगा वो करना चाहेगा,
Hmm.
और
Hmm.
जिसमें
Hmm.
इंटरेस्टेड नहीं होगा वो उसको बैठाना बहुत मुश्किल है.
Correct, correct.
उसके अंदर अभी वो कॉन्सेप्ट ही डेवलप नहीं हुआ
Absolutely.
ऑफ एम्पैथी, सेक्रीफाइस, ये एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कॉन्सेप्ट
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
डेवलप्ड. तो they were so over keen to diagnose her with ADHD because they
Ah.
wrote it, that was impacting the child, the teachers, their relationship with each other. Because वो उनको अच्छा, they were very hard on the school कि आप उसे 10 में से 8 दे कैसे रहे हो, जब
Hmm.
मुझे उसको कुछ सिखाने में घर में 3 घंटे लग रहे हैं. नाउ द थिंग इज कि वो 3 साल के बच्चे को अल्फाबेट सिखा रहे हैं और उसको लैंग्वेज सिखा रहे हैं, और 3 साल के बच्चे को वो सीखने में बिल्कुल इतना ही टाइम लगेगा, और हो सकता है उससे ज्यादा भी लगे.
Yeah.
I think the idea, and when I talked to the mother, she said that, so I was diagnosed with ADHD बहुत late in my life. And the fact that she feels it's genetic in nature, so वो होगा ही होगा बच्चे को. एक तो ये, this was a misconception, but there was also that anxiety कि because मेरे को नहीं मिला, I want to give her that right away, even if that is stressing out your child, because you're becoming aggressive towards the child as well, and you're also becoming aggressive towards towards the teachers who are.
Which is so terribly ironic because you're almost wishing कि हाँ हो जाए diagnose तो एक पता तो लग जाएगा and we can move forward in a certain way.
एब्सोल्युटली कार्तिक जी, पता है, ये आपने बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात कही. डर का नेचर ही ये है. हम जब भी एंग्शियस होते हैं, हम डरते हैं, सच बात ये कि हम कहीं ना कहीं, वी ऑलमोस्ट फील कि जिस चीज से हम डर रहे हैं वो रियलिटी में एग्जिस्ट कर रही है,
Hmm. Hmm.
और हम उसी तरीके से रिस्पॉन्ड करते हैं जैसे कि वो एग्जिस्ट कर रही है. सो
कर
इफ आई
रही है.
एम अफ्रेड ऑफ लिजर्ड, आई वुड एज्यूम दैट लिजर्ड इज अराउंड मी.
Yeah.
एंड इसका एक बहुत छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई गिव इन अ वेरी लेमन लैंग्वेज, कुछ भी टेक्निकल नहीं. सो जब कभी हमारे हाथ पे एक चींटी चलती हुई आ जाए, हम सो रहे हैं, चींटी आ गई है, सडनली आपको फील होगा कि मेरे कान में भी कुछ घुसा
पूरे
है,
भी बॉडी में हो रही है.
मेरे हाथ में भी कुछ है. आपको अपने जो बाल हैं वो कपड़े पे जो रिएक्ट कर रहे हैं वो भी फील हो रहे होंगे चींटी.
करेक्ट, करेक्ट.
ऐसा ही फियर होता है.
हम्म.
राइट, आप या तो आप ये डिसाइड कर सकते हैं कि अरे कुछ नहीं है, मेरे को बाल से ऐसा लग रहा है, जस्ट स्लीप, आई नो दैट दिस इज व्हाट फियर लुक्स लाइक, लेट मी जस्ट स्लीप, फाइन. आपका माइंड वही फीडबैक ले लेगा, फीडबैक टेकन, इट्स नॉट एज इम्पोर्टेंट. द मोमेंट यू स्टैंड, बिस्तर से उठो, सारा झाड़ो, अब मैं सो ही नहीं पा रही हूँ, रात भर खराब हो गई, योर ब्रेन क्लिक्स अ पिक्चर.
हम्म.
It clicks a picture, acha, it is valid to be afraid of such things and react like this. And the more pictures your brain clicks, the more larger the spectrum of what you should be afraid of becomes. I
हम्म.
feel over time, because of course हम as mental health professionals जब psycho educate करते हैं तो हम सबसे पहले disorders के बारे में ही बताएंगे, और we would educate them about what all can happen, worst case scenarios, so you should be careful. But then there are not always worst case scenarios. There are sometimes just general issues that are happening. how do you not get afraid of this? Like, it's not, as we say, ki, you don't become God fearing people, you become God loving people. So we are becoming mental health fearing people. And that's why we are seeing two different kind of population. एक जो इस पे बहुत गुस्सा हो रही है कि अरे वो तो पहले का ही टाइम अच्छा था, पहले के टाइम में हम इतना सोचते ही नहीं थे,
सोचते ही नहीं थे।
है ना। इतना ज्यादा आप एंग्शियस हो रहे हो, बिकॉज
हम्म
उनकी बात भी सही है कि आप एंग्शियस,
हम्म हम्म
उसको अगर आप हेल्दी तरीके से पोर्ट्रे करोगे तो वो दूसरा भी एक्सेप्ट करेगा कि कुछ तो ये कर रहे हैं जिससे ये इतना खुश हैं, लेट मी ऑल्सो अडेप्ट टू इट, राइट। दैट्स हाउ आई थिंक जब हम रिलीजन की भी बात करते हैं तो आई सी देयर टू काइंड्स ऑफ पीपल। वन इज पीपल हु वुड बी वेरी एंग्शियस एंड ओवर प्रोटेक्टिव ऑफ देयर बिलीफ सिस्टम्स, बट देन देयर आर सम पीपल जिनसे आप खुद जाके पूछते हो व्हाट आर यू डूइंग,
हम्म
you're not aging, you're looking absolutely glowy, you everything that I think everything that you do is so effortless. Is there something that you're doing? So it's basically if you're inspiring people by what you're being, and if that makes them interested, maybe they become curious about what exactly you have as your support systems or your toolkits. And just because I might forget it, Karthik, what you said, that a lot of psychologists, and I have seen a lot of psychologists who have also become influencers. They have a lot of followings, and they will also not talk about their personal issues. Um, I just want to point out there's a concept well studied and well written in therapeutic intervention, which is called self disclosure.
हम्म
It's also a kind of therapeutic intervention that you.
हम्म
Self disclosure is when I disclose something that
हम्म
I have been through, not
हम्म
in a way that it makes me the center of the therapy session,
राइट राइट।
just makes me feel more human to you.
ह्यूमन
And
एम्पथेटिक।
yeah,
या
so you disclose. I don't want to be a godlike creature in front of you.
करेक्ट।
I don't have a syrup that I take every morning and then become invincible.
I mean, I think sometimes it's purely in the service of demonstrating and understanding that, hey, listen, I get what you're going through.
Yes, and people can go through it, and it does not make you weak, vulnerable, or something to be fixed at. I remember there was something that I used to say when I used to take very active clients. There was this one session, first session tha, and this child was so, she was a very independent woman. She made her career all the way to Japan. And she came from a very small town in southern parts of India.
Mm.
And she had taken one therapist after another, and she's been with me for a year or two before we closed therapy. So when she started talking, I could sense that there was a desperate need to be fixed. So the first thing that I said to her was, A, I realized that she fall under the spectrum of highly sensitive people. B, I said that, see, sensitivity is like a superpower. So every superhuman movie that you see, be it Spider-Man, Hulk, anything, you would see when they have first gotten their powers, they become very destructive. They're jumping from one building to another, जितना काम सुधारा नहीं उससे ज़्यादा बिगाड़ते हैं.
Mm.
Till they learn to tame it, till they learn to use it for the benefit of themselves and others. I
Right.
said sensitivity is that no matter what people tell you, it's something that you can use for upliftment of yourself and upliftment for others. It's like a laser beam that's very powerful, but you have to learn how to manage it. You have to learn how to use that power for yourself and not the power to destruct you and other people. So it's like having the strongest, sharpest sword. You can use it for protection, or it can cause a lot of damage if given to a child. So you have to develop that journey. Second, you're not to be fixed, you're not broken. You are develop in this therapy. My intention is so that we develop an extension of who you already are, which is slightly more capable of being more self-aware, so that
Mm.
it manages and accepts what it cannot change.
Correct.
It modifies something that it feels is not required. It might have been required when you were younger, but it might not be serving you today. So, and developing ability to do this on your own. And a lot of psychologists, I feel, when, or not just psychologists, mentors, teachers, parents, I have seen doing this. You don't create a version of yourself in front of your child which is not real. Let them know that you can be messed up at times, you can cry at times, because they look up to you. And at times when they really hate themselves because of some situations that happen in their life, it's normal, it happens. They would remember that my father was going through something similar. He hated himself, but I absolutely adored him. He had such a value to add on to our life. So if I can love him in moments when he hated himself, means that I am worth something as well. And maybe it's not as real as I believe it to be right now. So as human, as vulnerable, as broken you can be in front of people, try to be that. And it's absolutely fine. I think it would be a seed of that culture that we are trying to develop.
You've said too many critical points. Again, I have some thoughts to share. One is personal. So I think that in many scenarios, the potential pitfalls of parents or guardians or teachers not being able to manage their own emotions in a healthy manner and therefore demonstrating it or transferring it on to younger children can be very, very cataclysmic for their mental makeup. Now, for instance, for years and years, because this atmosphere of constant fear, dread, impending doom, and any emergency possible was created by my father. My nervous system got so used to that since moving away from him also, now that the source of that commotion is gone, my system feels incomplete. So I found myself, of course, prior to a certain amount of therapy, just inventing situations in which there'd be a certain degree of chaos, whether it was picking a fight with my partner or with my mum.
Mhm.
So, it's really, really important. I can't stress this enough for parents to be modeling the kind of thing that they hope and want for their own children. I mean, it's as simple as that because children only learn by observation. You are their first teachers and you will remain their eternal teachers.
Yes. Yes. Very true. And the fact that um, I feel like I'm seeing the other spectrum of parents who are too careful. And when you're too careful, you also are you're driven by anxiety of doing something wrong. Or some who are too carefree or too indifferent to care. Both these spectrums are extreme.
Absolutely.
As a parent, I feel you're gonna make mistakes. But every time you make a mistake and you own up to it, you apologize. I mean, I'm amazed कि कितने बच्चे से मैंने पूछा और कितने एडल्ट से मैंने पूछा जो अभी अपने 50s में 60s में कि डिड योर मदर एवर अपोलोजाइज टू योर फादर एवर अपोलोजाइज टू, कभी नहीं। उनका कहना होता है हाँ
मैं तो
उनका
अपनी बेटी को हर ऑल्टरनेट डे अपोलोजाइज करता हूँ किसी ना किसी चीज के बारे में।
हाँ, क्योंकि हम गलतियाँ कर देते हैं और
हम्म।
कभी-कभार अपॉलजी इज़ नॉट कमिंग फ्रॉम कि वो आपका इंटेंशन क्वेश्चन
ऑफ
कर रहा है।
कोर्स।
अपॉलजी इज़ कि ठीक है भई, आई माइट हैव कॉज़्ड अ डिस्ट्रेस टू यू एंड आई अपोलोजाइज़ फॉर दैट। यू लेट मी नो व्हाट आई कैन डू व्हिच डज़ नॉट कॉज़ इट। सो आई फील पीपल हैव कि नहीं, मम्मी का सॉरी बोलने का तरीका होता था कि वो कहती थी चल आके खाना खा ले, बैठ जाओ, रोना नहीं है, कमरे से बाहर आ जाओ। तो एक बहुत बड़ा कन्फ्यूजन होता है जो हम समझते ही नहीं है कि हमारे नर्वस सिस्टम में जैसे बहुत एक कॉमन बिहेवियर होता है ना मम्मियों का कि जो मदर इन लॉज के साथ रहती हैं, दैट दे इफ दे बीटिंग यू तो फिर वो दैट यू नॉट गोइंग टू क्राई क्राई।
But there are these very, very sad walls that have been constructed. We hear of these true cliches so often. How, for example, men especially are entirely incapable of any kind of expression of emotion, whether it's father, sons, whether it's two brothers. So you see this all the time, and again, I mean, it's high time that we start collapsing some of these walls. Unfortunately, they seem to be stronger than the Berlin Wall. But anyway, I think some of us empaths might be able to. We've certainly done it in our sort of micro construct, and that's what I always say. That listen, don't try to bring about a revolution. Just do it at home for yourself and for your immediate people, and that's how the change will come. Kriti, I want to talk also about another very significant point you brought up, and I have my own views on this. The A certain degree of basic fundamental psychological awareness that faculties en masse at a particular school, in fact, I would go so far as to say even administrative staff and everybody involved in an educational institution and machinery should be given, especially again in our Indian context, where you would, of course, agree because you know it better than I do, now that it is pretty much mandated for schools to have that one mental health resource on the payroll. We know that the ratio is completely skewed because how much will one person do with a student body of 800, 900,000, 2,000 students? On top of which, most of these mental health resources are, in any case, made to teach the subject of psychology to senior school and set papers and do corrections like any other teacher. So, in any case, to counter that, it seems like such a wise idea to have a certain mass of people. उनको PhD नहीं बनाना है यार. You just have to give them basic
Basic.
awareness and training so that they can at the at the very outset mitigate, report, be aware, spot red flags, etc., etc., which ultimately anyway will then greatly reduce again that a certain amount of build up happening and it reaching a more severe stage.
So, Kaji, I have very, like, I have spent last 1 year kind of doing a lot of research on what we can do. I wanted to create a manual, a safety manual that does not just aligns with Western understanding of mental health. I wanted it to understand how we perceive mental health in India.
Hmm.
हमारे यहाँ स्ट्रेस को दिखाने के शब्द भी अलग हैं। जैसे जैसे हमारे यहाँ ना कहने के शब्द अलग हैं कि देखते हैं। वो एक
Of
तो हम
course, and that makes a huge difference. That is your lexicon.
Yes. So, first of all, we're not people who express too much in general. We show vulnerability with anger and frustration and a sense of controlling. और ये हमारे डीएनए में बहुत डीपली इंग्रेन है। और क्योंकि हम जब स्कूल्स की बात करते हैं तो सिर्फ शहरों के स्कूल्स की बात नहीं करते। जब हम बात कर रहे हैं तो वो बहुत सारे टियर 2 टियर 3 सिटीज की भी बात हो रही है जो नॉन मेट्रो सिटीज हैं, जहाँ बच्चे जॉइंट फैमिली से आ रहे हैं, इन लॉज के साथ आ रहे हैं, पेरेंट्स के पास सारी सोल ऑटोनॉमी भी नहीं है. सो हाउ डू यू डेवलप दैट काइंड ऑफ मैनुअल? सो आई
Correct.
फेल्ट two divisions. A manual can have two parts. One could be a safety manual,
Hmm.
which is based on preventive measures, which
Hmm.
means how do from day one I develop a culture of awareness, of sensitivity, of probably acceptance, and also well-being.
Hmm.
In general, the other one is intervention model, which is that how do I know that okay, if this किसी बच्चे को शब्द लिखने में या समझने में इससे ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, ये उसका थ्रेशोल्ड है, अगर इससे ज्यादा
Hmm.
हो रही है सेंड देम टू एन एक्सपर्ट.
Hmm.
तो द फिल्ट्रेशन ऑफ इट कि
Correct.
वो
Correct.
12% पॉपुलेशन जिसको पॉसिबली कुछ स्पेशल कंडीशंस हो
Right.
सके,
Right.
उस पॉपुलेशन को फिल्टर करना मेरे लिए आसान है. देन आई
Yeah.
कैन जस्ट दैट 12% पॉपुलेशन टू द एक्सपर्ट्स. द रेस्ट ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन इज अंडर मी. हाउ डू आई टेक केयर ऑफ इट? उनके लिए आते हैं प्रिवेंटिव मैनुअल्स. वन, आई थिंक इट्स अ 3 स्टेप प्रोसेस.
Hmm.
वन, डोंट डोंट से कि हम कुछ नया मॉडल लेके आ रहे हैं, है ना, कुछ हम नया नहीं लेके आ रहे हैं. हम पहले एक काम करते हैं, सिर्फ जो स्टाफ है और जो टीचर्स हैं उनकी वेलबींग पे ध्यान देते हैं. उनकी वेलबींग पे कैसे ध्यान देंगे हम? कि सबसे पहले उनके सपोर्ट ग्रुप सेशंस हो, साथ में इंजॉय एक्टिविटी एरियाज हो. एक्टिविटी में क्या होगा जो हमेशा से होता है टीचर्स का, हम जब छोटे थे अभी वो समोसे वगैरह सबके आ रहे हैं, देन दे आर हैविंग सम टाइम, टी टाइम.
Hmm.
टी टाइम हो रहा है, वहां पे हम बात कर रहे हैं सबके अपने अपने चाइल्डहुड की.
Hmm.
ये बहुत अमेजिंग होता है जब हम देखते थे टीचर्स डे वाले दिन, जब टीचर्स जो होते थे वो गेम्स खेलते थे और बच्चे टीचर बनते
Hmm.
थे.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
टीचर्स का बचपना निकल के
Hmm.
आता.
Hmm. Hmm.
दैट
Hmm.
वाज सच अ हीलिंग मोमेंट फॉर एवरी चाइल्ड बिकॉज दे कुड
Absolutely.
सी दैट टीचर एज अ चाइल्ड एज वेल.
And I would go so far as to say for that teacher also, because that was that one time after years and years where they were allowed
यस.
and they allowed themselves to just
हाँ,
be.
आई रिमेम्बर हमारे जो टीचर्स होते थे उनकी शर्ट्स बाहर आ रही हैं पैंट से, कूद रहे हैं इधर से उधर, बास्केटबॉल खेल रहे हैं, और तब हमें पता चलता था अच्छा ये टीचर गाते भी हैं, ये टीचर
Hmm.
भी करते हैं।
Yeah, yeah.
अब टीचर के अंदर पहले तो एक वो 11 साल का 5 साल का बच्चा है, क्या हम, एक तो हम बड़े बड़े टर्म्स छोड़ देते हैं। इफ
Hmm.
I can talk about transaction analysis, pack model. I don't want to talk about it. Let me just say that all of us have a child inside of us and has a
Hmm.
parent inside of us and an adult inside of us.
Hmm. Hmm.
I make 3 sessions at least in each quarter with all the staff, जहाँ एक बार we are tapping their child, चाहे उसके लिए कुछ भी हो, बचपन
Hmm.
की
Hmm.
एक्टिविटीज हो,
Hmm.
बचपन के बारे में बातें हों, सेंस ऑफ रिलेटेबिलिटी हो, फिर उनके अंदर का एडल्ट जो बात करे हेयर एंड नाउ की कि अभी क्या
Hmm.
चल रहा है लाइफ में, अभी क्या तकलीफें आ रही है, एंड देन उनका पेरेंट वर्जन जो बच्चों के साथ एक्ट अपॉन भी करता है कि उनके पेरेंट्स ने उन्हें कैसे पाला था।
Hmm. Hmm.
पेरेंट, क्योंकि जो हमारा पेरेंट वर्जन है, कार्तिक जी, जो आपने यू राइटली सेड दैट समथिंग दैट योर फादर वाज डूइंग एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, वो आपके अंदर आ गया, और अब वो थे नहीं तो भी आप रिपीट करते थे। दैट वाज योर पेरेंट मोड
Yeah.
that exists within you that mimics how your guardians took care of you.
Right.
I have 3 sessions each quarter, which just make one session, 1.5 hour का एक सेशन, एक क्वार्टर में, एक मंथ में, जिसमें हम एडल्ट टैप इन कर रहे हैं, चाइल्ड टैप इन कर रहे हैं, पेरेंट टैप इन कर रहे हैं, और उसमें हम कोई बड़ी बड़ी बातें नहीं कर रहे हैं कि बैठा के हम लेक्चर,
हाँ, हाँ.
एक्टिविटी बिल्डअप है ना।
Right, right.
धीरे धीरे हम ये नोटिस करेंगे कि ये खुश ज्यादा है, ये एक्सेप्टेड ज्यादा फील कर रहे हैं,
Hmm.
ज्यादा फील कर रहे हैं, इनके अंदर पेशेंस है, क्योंकि जो इनके अंदर जो वो निकलेगा धीरे धीरे तीसरे चौथे क्वार्टर तक आते आते कि मम्मी मुझे ऐसे करती थी एंड आई स्टिल फील, और फिर दूसरे ने अकोमोडेट किया, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, आप मेल और फीमेल का अलग करा लीजिए, कुछ कल्चर्स में साथ
True.
में एंगेज नहीं होगा, आप अलग करा लीजिए, दैट्स
Correct,
ओके,
correct, correct.
बट वुमेन आर सपोर्टिंग ईच अदर। तो धीरे धीरे क्या होगा कि आपने उनको फोर्स किया, यू हैव मोटिवेटेड देम टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट दैट चाइल्ड इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू वुड बिकम यू
Hmm.
एट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, वो भी एडल्ट है और एक दिन बनेगा, है ना। तो आप जो फील कर रहे हो उसके, जब आप खुद के लिए ज्यादा सेंसिटिव हो,
Hmm.
के लिए ज्यादा अवेयर हैं, वो प्रोजेक्ट होता है। हम प्रोजेक्शन की बात करते हैं कि कोई है जो बहुत अनअवेयर है अपनी लाइफ में, तो उसको सामने वाला भी अनअवेयर ही लगता है, वो खुद खराब है तो उसको सारी दुनिया खराब लगती है। वी हैव सीन अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल दैट वी डोंट लाइक इन आवर लाइफ, आई एम श्योर यू मस्ट हैव कम अक्रॉस अ लॉट ऑफ देम कि यू डोंट लाइक देम कि ये महा सेल्फिश और सेल्फ सेंटर्ड इंसान है, लेकिन जब वो बात करेगा दुनियादारी की तो दिल से, दुनिया सेल्फिश ही है, दुनिया बहुत सेल्फ सेंटर्ड है, कोई किसी का सगा नहीं है, यू हैव टू टेक केयर, अरे तुम किसी के सगे नहीं हो, है ना। तो द व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू डेवलप इज, द मोर दे फील कंफर्टेबल विद इन देमसेल्फ, द मोर दे विल हैव स्पेस टू गेट सम न्यू information about something outside, which is a
Right.
child living in front of them, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And then once we do it for a year or two, then we start combined sessions.
Hmm.
Combined session is that I have one or two teachers who have these 20, 30, 50 students, और उनके साथ उनका एक सेशन हो रहा है,
Okay.
और ये भले ही इसको करने में 1.5 साल लगे, लेकिन वो 20, 30 स्टूडेंट्स ने जब पर्सनली अपनी कहानी बताई, सिमिलैरिटीज दिखी इन द टीचर्स चाइल्डहुड एंड इन देयर चाइल्डहुड, एंड दे आर एबल टू रिलेट विद ईच अदर मोर, वी हैव ऑलरेडी डेवलप अ कल्चर जो ओपन है कॉन्वर्जेशन के लिए, वी
Hmm.
हैव ऑलरेडी डेवलप अ कल्चर जो हेल्दी है इंटरनली, उसको उसका खाना भी मिल रहा है, इसलिए वो दूसरे का खाना नहीं छीनेगा।
Hmm.
I am not happy, I cannot provide you any happiness because
Correct, correct, correct.
I am in scarcity. So, a lot of times when I talk about preventive measures, I feel treat staff and teachers also as human beings. They're going through a lot. They are not respected for what they do. At least in India, you become a teacher when you have nothing else to do. ये एक परसेप्शन है, ये एक बिलीफ है जो बच्चा भी फील करता है, उसको बहुत प्राउड होता है फील करके कि ये तो यहीं रह जाएंगे, ये यहीं पढ़ा रहे होंगे और मैं 10 साल बाद ये बन जाऊंगा। So that belief system has to kind of addressed, and then they are supposed to be given that opportunity to be a human being, a respectable human being who is being loved and kind of accommodated for whatever they are going through, and that's the biggest preventive measures. इसको अब मैं बहुत टेक्निकल लैंग्वेज में भी फ्रेम कर सकती हूँ, but I think it's not important right now. It's,
Hmm.
we can
Hmm.
have that topic separately some other day, but this is an umbrella understanding of
Correct, correct.
what those sessions can look like. In
Hmm.
therapy, we call it parent adult child model, which is a packed
Hmm.
model that we address in safety measures and intervention measures.
I think this is absolutely genius, and I think it has very, very, very significant, deep and long-term benefits to be derived. This is the kind of conversation that can go on and on and on. We also are simultaneously aware, along with the fact that you're saying some very, very crucial things, that audiences have diminishing attention spans. So that जो भी आप कह रहे हैं और जो भी थोड़ा बहुत मैंने किया कहा है वो व्यर्थ नहीं हो. दैट्स ऑल्सो इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट. आई वुड रादर दैट वी डू 1-2 more sessions and cap this one for today and let whatever's been said be heard, listened to, and understood and digested wholly and properly, rather than just अब वो थाली में थाली तो अनलिमिटेड है पर जरूरत से ज्यादा परोसने से काउंटर प्रोडक्टिव हो जाएगा.
Correct, definitely, that's very true.
Uh,
A lot of time I've told this to psychologists as well कि आपको लग रहा है कि फर्स्ट सेशन में आप सब कुछ दे दोगे पर एग्जीक्यूशन में टाइम लगता है. तो स्टार्ट वन स्टेप एट अ टाइम. That's really a good thought.
But let me just say again, plainly to your face, I'm very, very inspired. The first time we connected, I remember pretty much relaying our entire conversation as much as I could of it to my wife as it is. And I told her, my God, this is like, because I'm at that funny it's a middle-aged cynical stage where I feel that I don't meet too many inspiring young people, and then I was like, "Arey, aaj to I feel so optimistic and charged and revitalized," and I want to reiterate that. Hope floats, and I'm very optimistic each time I interact with you because I feel that not all is lost.
That's
So
kind of
thank
you.
you
And
for the
that's
work that you're
really
doing, for your understanding, for your insight, and we'll be in touch, and we'll definitely do another part should you find the time and inclination.
Yes, I would love to. I just want to say that every time you appreciate me, I think I still have the I say like, I have that 11-year-old kid who would look up to for validation if I'm doing right. But I sometimes allow that child to have that kind of validation. Every time you appreciate,
We
it
all
does
do.
feel a little bit in me. Thank you so much for such kind words.
My pleasure entirely. Take care.